Do you know how to be happy? Like really happy? We're about to dive into that, so stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker, and in this podcast, we love to interview all sorts of successful people from different backgrounds because we want to learn what they've learned in their career. We want to learn from their failures so that we can either avoid them completely or we can learn to fail faster so that we can all live better, happier, and healthier lives. My guest today is an incredible author and has a background coming from film and TV. She was a producer from a show you might have heard of called Survivor, but now she's written a book that's called Take a Shot at Happiness. And she has a PhD in conscious living and can really help you bring happiness into your everyday life. So Maria Baltazzi, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to have our conversation.
I am too. I am so excited. So part of the things that make me so excited is I've heard you talk about your time working in film and TV and just feeling burnt out. And I know I felt that exact same way coming from engineering, where there was nothing wrong with the job. There was nothing wrong with the people. There was nothing wrong with the managers. There was nothing wrong. What was wrong was me internally and the journey that I needed to take for myself to find my own happiness. And it sounds like you and I have shared a similar path in that way. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it from your words.
Well, I agree with what you just said, that you didn't feel that something was being fulfilled. I mean, for me, I felt like I had hit a bottom. I was not happy in my career. I was not happy in my personal life. And what I did was made a conscious choice. So instead of sitting in the I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, whatever those emotions were, singularly or collectively, I chose, and when people ask me, what is the key to happiness? What's the secret? It's choice. It's choice backed by intentional activities that will raise your happiness level, which is what my book is all about. So I made a choice where I was in my darkest hour, and then I started reading books and taking courses and getting certifications and then degrees, and eventually I came to a book. And one of the big lessons that I've learned, the show that I'm most known for, which is Survivor, that show was a catalyst for me. In that for 7 seasons, I had a front row seat to seeing the best and the worst in human nature and or human behavior. And so often I would sit in interview with a contestant who would say, well, this isn't me, this is me playing a game. And it got me to thinking, it's just, well, of course it's you. Those were your words and actions.
Right.
However, what struck me is that they weren't at home with their creature comforts, the family supports. They weren't on a remote island without any real food, vying for life-changing money. How would you know what your behavior is going to be until you are tested, like the Survivor contestants, or you explore it? And that's what my book and what I'm encouraging people to do is explore, test what is going to make you happy, what's going to elevate your well-being.
Well, and I love the book as well because it's called Take a Shot at Happiness. So I absolutely love the sort of double layering meaning there, where you're taking shot as in, trying, but then also shot as in, the film, the capturing that moment in there. And I just want to go through kind of how you have the chapters laid out because it's really brilliant how you've done this. So, most books are written from, cover to cover, and maybe you've read it once, maybe you would read a book a second time, but it's not necessarily something you go back to very often. At least that's been the case with me. And I've read many personal development and self-help type books, but this book was really designed to be something that it's more like a companion. It's more than a journaling notebook. Um, but it has those components. So the different chapters you have in here, which each work is a standalone, is faith, love, health, gratitude, forgiveness, peace, detachment, and abundance. I'd love to know how you came up with those, and are there any that you wish you would have added, maybe now that you've had the book out for a while?
So I came up with that list in my moment of choosing that I wanted to be happier. And what motivated me to move forward is I made a list of the things that have had made me happy or brought happiness to me in my past.
Hmm.
And what I think thought would bring me happiness in my future. And
Hmm.
then I took that list and I went and researched to see if there was science to back up what I was intuitively feeling and had experience before in my life. And that became both my dissertation when I got my PhD, as well as the chapters to my book.
Hmm.
So is there one that I wish that would have been there? There isn't. And it's interesting that you asked that question because it's never even occurred to me to think that there was one that was missing. It's
Yeah.
always, those 8 have always felt so complete to me.
Oh, I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. Going through and preparing for this, the chapter where I feel like where I'm personally in my own journey is in detachment. So that's the chapter that I'm starting with. So even though it's number 7, I think I've already done some work for the other ones, and it's where I feel like I need the most work. And I love that that's how you designed the book, is that someone could just go straight to where they need it. And it's so easy to find where it is. So thank you so much for that.
Well, you're welcome. And detachment it was and still is the stickiest one for me. And it is for many people. I've heard several other readers say that was the chapter they really wanted to dig into. And
Mm.
it was always my bigger vision that I would do a deeper dive book on each chapter. So there would be
Oh,
just a book on love and just a book on peace. And I was going to start with faith and just, go in order, but I'm beginning to think maybe I should start with detachment because I've had so many people mention that chapter as the one that really, was the most helpful for them.
yeah. I mean, there really is so much power in letting go. And you'd
Mhm.
think that, like, you're holding on to things so tightly that the release from literally releasing would be so powerful. And yet it seems to be the most scary.
Well, and we hang on to things out of fear, out of rightness,
Mm.
out of a desire. There is some experiment where a monkey could go and put his hand into a circle and grab a banana, but he couldn't pull the
Mm.
banana out because the circle wasn't big enough. And that monkey would just stay there and not let go of the banana because he wanted it so bad. And I think that that's just such a great example of how we are with the things that we want or our limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
The things that hold us back, we just grip so hard, and it just it's it's really a practice. It's really an awareness that and an effort to get on the other side of that.
Well, and you think of like babies coming into the world,
Mhm.
they have like death grip. They're so strong in their hands. So maybe it's just something that like we're born with that we have to learn through our human experience on on how to hold things, more loosely, open-handed holding.
I think there is also learned. I mean, I think you are shaped by your family and culture of things that become limiting beliefs, things that make you stuck, that you hang on to. And there's also there's some kind of reward that's associated with hanging on to something. Like maybe you're getting attention because you have a certain woe is me of attitude towards something, and you get the sympathy from people, or whatever that is, that there is some associated reward that you're getting from holding on to that thing.
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
a belonging, even it's just, oh yeah, I feel that way too. I'm stuck. I can't move forward either. And so you have these conversations of I'm stuck together, so you stay stuck together.
Well, and I think about, like, especially for women, and I think this is part of why Marie Kondo with tidying up
Mm-hmm.
was such a huge movement, because I think for every woman, there is probably at least one section in our closet of clothes we'll wear someday. Right? Like maybe we were shopping with a friend and they said it looked good on us, so we impulsively bought it, and then we get back and they're like, this isn't me. Why did I buy this? What am I gonna wear this to?
Well, that's true. And I also have that with books. I will read this sometime, and it's still sitting on your nightstand. Months have gone by. I have this one book that was given to me that I actually want to pass on to a friend. I
Hmm.
wanted to read it first and then pass on to I probably have had that book now for 5 months, and I've only read a couple of chapters.
Maybe give it to your friend first and then she can bring it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, especially if you're with your experience in TV, and thinking about how these behaviors are learned, I think television and movies play such a huge role in what we see. And one example that comes to mind is Married with Children. And I think of the character Al Bundy coming home and just being miserable from work. And I feel like, as that was a show that was on while I was growing up, that became such a mental image of work's supposed to be this thing you have to endure so that you can get home and then just have the chance to relax. And so I think there's a lot of pervasive images and things of that nature that are in our culture because of TV. With your experience being in TV and now what you know now, what are your thoughts on that?
uh, it influences a lot. And I spend time talking about this in my book, and it's films as well. So almost all my chapters begin, and bullet points that I make within the chapters begin with some kind of a story, often taken from a film that we know. And it's because we learn so much from the shows and the films that we take in. And so it's really important that we pay attention to the films you watch, the books you read, the newspapers you consume, the conversations that you have, that you really protect your head. Yeah, that if you are taking in all that negativity,
Mm.
that's going to shape your perception, and and who you surround yourself with. I mean, if you just think of the different kinds of groups and what their attitudes are, if you think of somebody who is a group of medical doctors, certain you have a certain perception of their attitudes and ways of being, versus somebody who belongs to a group of Harley Davidson bike riders.
Mm.
That brings up a whole nother
There's
set
a
of.
mental image.
Right, exactly. And then what goes with those mental images are our attitudes, their beliefs. So it's really important what you are surrounding yourself with. For me growing up, my father was very protective of the TV shows that I was allowed to see and the films that I was allowed to go to. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but now I sure do. I am my own editor when it comes to that. So yes, thinking about, even if you are out in public, and I do this often, where you are sitting next to a table and somebody is talking loudly and they're going on and on and on about something that is a misery for them, they're complaining about, they're just so full of anger, and I just will remove myself. I will go and sit somewhere where I'm not hearing it, because I don't want that negative energy coming on to me. Because
Mhm.
those words, their projection has energy that is getting put out into the environment around them. So I am very conscious of steering myself away from overheard conversations that I don't want to keep overhearing.
And it goes to the fact of like, we're the directors of our own lives.
Yeah.
We have the ability to edit and cut the scenes and things that we don't fit in, that don't want to be part of our overall movie of life.
Right. That is so true. And when you think, most people think in pictures.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what kind of pictures do you want to have floating around in your head? Which is why I intentionally have phone camera prompts to help people look for positive images and experiences throughout their day. And so when you do this often enough, it becomes your habit. And as it's becoming your habit, you're creating a positive neural pathway to look for the good. Now, that's one of my favorite things that I have learned in my happiness studies, was the idea of looking for the good. That when you have an experience, or you are in a situation, you are seeing something that is pleasant, that is giving you joy, that is positive, that you stay with it instead of thinking on, okay, next. We are
Right.
so jumping from one thing to the other, but you stay with it for at least 20 to 30 seconds.
Mm.
Because when you do that, you are installing that as a memory in your brain. And so you do that often enough, you build a storehouse of positive memories that you can actually go to when you aren't feeling as happy as you want. You have something that you can reflect on that does uplift you. So the whole idea of images and how profound it is in what you take in and what you see in your head, I think is huge, and we don't talk enough about it. We
I
don't talk enough about the kind of images we are creating in our head, and we can change if we become aware of those pictures, which is what I help readers to do.
and I'm so glad that you do, because I don't like to write by hand. My handwriting is chicken scratch, and so other things that have been journaling, and I understand the power of actually holding the pen and making it physically right versus typing something. Like, I understand the science behind all of that, yet I have to feel good about what I'm writing too. And if I go back and I'm like, well, I don't know what I read because my handwriting is not the greatest, I love that I can take a picture. And as we say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But I also love that and from clients I've worked with, sometimes people have a hard time visualizing the good or
Mhm.
staying in it. I
Mhm.
love that you put a time of just 20 to 30 seconds because that makes it seem so much more doable. But to be able to have a picture that makes you happy and use that as a starting point to start building that muscle of being able to hold those positive thoughts in your mind. I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant to be able to take those two parts of our, hemispheres of our brain and bring them together with having the written word and the picture associated with it. And I understand that you have an app that makes it even easier
Right.
to do this and have it categorized. So please tell me a little bit more about your app.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, to your handwriting thing, if you are using the app, you can journal right on the app as well.
Perfect.
So you have both the um, photography prompts that are specific to what you're reading. So you take a picture and then you write about that image. And taking the picture works in a couple of ways. One, you have that muscle that you're building where you're looking for things that are positive, things that feel good, things that are meaningful to you. So you have the experience of doing that physically.
Hmm.
And I know when I focus on just one image and I really pay attention to how I'm framing it and exactly the picture information that I want in it, yeah, it becomes meditative for me. Everything falls away.
Mm.
I'm not thinking about the person that's annoying me. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to eat later on. I'm just focusing my mind on that one thing, which is what meditation is.
Yeah.
It's putting your mind on one point, one thing, a mantra, a word, and that picture taking becomes its own meditation. And then later you can visit that picture and you have the memory of the experience of taking that picture, which is pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also see things in that picture that maybe you haven't noticed. You didn't notice at the time that you took the photo. And then after that,
Ooh.
yeah, you notice things in a photo that's just, oh, I didn't even see that was there. That's so cool. You
Yeah,
see
I
a
love that.
reflection that maybe you hadn't seen. Maybe you're taking um, a photograph of some water, but you don't see what's reflected in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this really cool image of the trees that were surrounding where you were. Um, and then you can journal about it or put it into your phone. And what that does is, journaling is that you are taking thoughts that are maybe a blob,
Mm.
they're not organized, it's just a bunch of random thoughts that aren't connected, but you start to write. And as you do, you start to organize your thoughts. And then those thoughts help you understand what your thoughts and feelings are. And so it creates its own kind of catharsis. And so the two of them, I think, just work so beautifully together. And the camera prompts and the journaling prompts are very specific to each chapter and each bullet point within the chapter. I call my bullet points snapshots. I use camera terminology. Coming from a production background, I use camera terminology throughout my book. But so um, each prompt that you are doing is to help you integrate what you are reading. So if you are reading about detachment and a specific point about detachment, you then go and take guided photographs and do some guided journaling. It helps you take that intellectual idea and integrate it into your heart, into your
Mm-hmm.
body. So now you are better understanding, well, how does detachment or peace, how is that specific to my well-being? as opposed to the general. So you're taking the general and then you're making it specific to you. So ultimately, what I'm encouraging readers to do is what I call myself, and that's a happiness explorer, is that you go out and you explore what makes you happy, what will make you happier, what is unique to you. Because how I view faith in the framework of Maria's happiness world, or gratitude in Maria's happiness world, is going to be different than yours.
Right. Absolutely.
And so it's understanding that.
Well, and I think what's so lovely about taking it in a picture is, from reading the prompts, our brain does not like unanswered questions. So being able to put it in my brain as like, what would I take a picture of? It's sort of resetting me for the day to subconsciously be searching for the good. And I think so many times we are conditioned and programmed to search out the bad. If you tell somebody an idea, most people's response is to be like, it won't work. Here's why. X, Y, Z, Z, all the reasons why, instead of being like, that's interesting. How could we make this work? So I love being able to kind of have that in my mind. And it's just I think a great kind of companion to life. It's almost a different category than a book or a journal, because it is this iterative evolution that you can have with yourself.
And ongoing throughout your life.
Yeah.
How you take in your happiness at 20, it's going to be different at 40 and 50 and 60.
Yeah. It's funny. I put in a local Facebook group a couple of weeks ago, like, just what are some good, fun new date ideas for over 40 couple, just, new ideas, right? And the amount of negative comments of like things like drink prune juice, go to the old folks home. Like, you think that I had asked like the most horrific comment. But the one that stuck out to me the most was somebody wrote, and they're like, why would you do anything different at 40 than you did at 20? And I just thought, because I'm a different person now. Like, I've grown in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like, my 20-year-old self was beautiful and loved her and she was great. But my 40-year-old self has different things that she enjoys. And it just was such an interesting sort of concept for how people grow and evolve, and all being on our own journey.
Yeah, I agree. And we come into this world with a happiness set point.
Hmm.
And this comes out of the Happiness Laboratory by Sonia Lubomirsky at the University of Riverside. And you can look at happiness kind of like a pie that you're cutting up. We all, first of all, think about happiness on a continuum. There are some people who are grumpier naturally, and then other people who seem to have a song in their heart all the time. And everybody else lives somewhere in between those extremes along that happiness continuum. And so if you're looking at happiness percentages, like a pie, 50% is designated by your DNA. What you come into the world with from your parents. And then 10% is your circumstance, your life circumstance. And then the other 40% that defines your happiness is intentional activities, which is all about, my book is all about intentional activities that will raise your levels of feelings of happiness and well-being. And my feeling is, if you are doing those intentional activities on a consistent basis, consistency is the big thing. You have to It's like going to the gym. If you're going to get that really nice shapely bod or those nicely defined muscles, you have to do it, on a consistent basis. Well, same with your well-being and your happiness. So if you are doing intentional activities on a consistent basis, that's going to impact that 10% of your life circumstance.
Right.
And then, not to get into the weeds about epigenetics, your DNA, just because your DNA is predisposed to certain things, doesn't mean it's going to be so. You have to be in the right environment for your DNA to everything to fire off.
Right.
So I feel that there is even just that 40%, even if you were just to isolate that 40% of intentional activities that will raise your well-being, really, you have a lot more than that 40% within your control to raise your overall happiness.
Yeah, that you can absolutely work with. Well, Maria, I have enjoyed this conversation so much, and I know that we could go down rabbit holes of all of the things, but thank you so much for giving such a great broad overview to the listeners of happiness, because it applies no matter where we are in business. And to remember that, whether we're the business owner or the entrepreneur, working in corporate, stay at home, wherever we are, we're in control of our own happiness. And that's really the secret, isn't it?
Well, yes, we're in control and we need to do something about it. And I'd like to leave the audience, the listeners, with two things. One is a takeaway, something that they can actually do, because I hear a lot of people saying, well, I have so many negative thoughts and chattering. What can I do about it? They don't seem to go away. And one thing that they can do is a technique that comes out of cognitive behavior therapy, and it's called
Mm,
thought stopping. And that's literally what you are doing. So when you recognize that you are having thoughts that aren't serving you, you literally stop your thoughts by either having a rubber band around your wrist that you snap, or
right.
literally clapping your hands, or just saying stop. And
I
what you're
I
doing
use
is,
cancel, cancel.
yeah, okay. And what you're doing in your brain is you are startling your thought. And when you startle your thought, then that gives you an opportunity to make another choice. And the other thing that I would like to leave listeners with is that happiness is another form of resilience. It's another word for resilience. That's what I've concluded after my years of studying
Mm,
and practicing so many of the things that I write about, is that you study the virtues and qualities, the values, the habits of happy people, and you incorporate that into your life. So when you have life challenges, you're just better equipped to deal with it. That's not to say that you won't spin out, you won't be upset, but you just will be able to navigate it better and come out on the
absolutely.
other side a little bit more emotionally intact.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Life is life. It's
Yeah.
it's us that can change. It starts with us.
Yeah. 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 Because I don't want people to think that, well, once you're happy, you're always happy. No, it's something that you are constantly um, bringing into your life and cultivating and reshaping as you grow and change. But it's all within your ability to do.
Oh, that's beautiful, Maria. So your book is available wherever books are sold, right? We can get it on Amazon,
Barnes and Noble,
Walmart,
Goodreads,
Target.
right. Wherever you can order a book online, you can find mine.
If someone wants to dig deeper than the book, are there other ways to work with you?
Sure. They can find me, just follow my name, Maria Baltazzi. You'll find my website. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, Insight Timer, where I'm a meditation teacher, LinkedIn.
All
Yeah.
of the places. Well,
Yes.
wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for writing this book. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking this journey and allowing all of us to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And to the listeners, thank you so much for being here. I know you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to hear more content like this and more great things that you didn't know you didn't know. Until next time, everyone, take care.